At just 61 years old, Jim Carrey sat down for what he described as the last interview he would ever give. The comedian who had spent decades making the world laugh finally lowered the mask and revealed the painful reality hidden behind that unforgettable smile. For years, audiences sensed that the explosive energy, wild expressions, and endless humor were concealing something much darker. They were right. In 2025, Carrey admitted that he had relied on Prozac since the late 1980s to battle a deep emotional emptiness that never completely disappeared. Yet even that confession was only the beginning. What he later revealed about his father's repeated suicide attempts and the emotional wounds that shaped his own life forever changes the way every one of his films is seen. Behind every laugh was a man quietly fighting battles no audience ever knew existed. Jim Carrey entered the world on January 17, 1962, in the quiet Canadian town of Newmarket, Ontario. As the youngest of 4 children, he grew up inside a crowded home where financial anxiety was part of everyday life. His father, Percy Carrey, had once dreamed of making music professionally, performing as a saxophonist before giving up that passion to become an accountant at Titan Wheels in Scarborough, earning barely enough to support his family. His mother, Kathleen, struggled with serious health problems throughout much of Jim's childhood, often confined to bed while the rest of the family tried to hold life together. Long before Jim became a global superstar, he witnessed his father's silent heartbreak. Percy had buried his artistic dreams beneath endless responsibilities, teaching his son a painful lesson at an early age that talent alone could never guarantee security. As a young boy, Jim escaped reality the only way he knew how. He would spend hours staring into a mirror, twisting his face into impossible expressions and inventing hilarious characters until everyone around him burst into laughter. Even his brothers and sisters stopped whatever they were doing just to watch his performances. Comedy quickly became more than entertainment. It became survival. By the time he was only 10 years old, Jim believed so strongly in his gift that he wrote a letter to television legend Carol Burnett, proudly introducing himself as a talented impressionist. When she kindly responded, that simple letter became one of his greatest possessions. He pinned it to his bedroom wall as proof that his impossible dream might actually come true someday. School, however, became a constant stage. Jim turned classrooms into comedy clubs, mimicking teachers, celebrities, and anyone who crossed his path. His performances delighted classmates but frustrated school officials, who repeatedly removed him from class. Soon everyone knew him by one unforgettable nickname, Rubber Face. For a child living with poverty and uncertainty, making people laugh felt more valuable than anything money could buy. Then disaster struck. In 1975, Titan Wheels unexpectedly shut its doors, and Percy's stable career vanished overnight. At 51 years old, he desperately mailed more than 70 applications to accounting firms across Ontario, hoping someone would give him another chance. Every response brought another rejection. The family's savings disappeared almost as quickly as they had earned them, while Kathleen's medical bills continued to grow. With nowhere else to turn, Percy accepted work as a janitor earning only $4 an hour, cleaning bathrooms inside factories much like the one where he had once held a respected office job. Jim was only 13, forced to watch his hero pushed into a life of humiliation. The sight shattered something inside him. The hardship only grew worse. Within months, the Carrey family lost their home completely. For nearly 2 years, they survived inside a faded yellow Volkswagen van parked near Lake Ontario. Percy and Kathleen slept inside the cramped vehicle while Jim and his brother John pitched a small tent nearby, enduring freezing Canadian nights as winter temperatures dropped around them. Every morning they woke with frost covering their sleeping bags before washing up at a nearby gas station and heading off to school as though everything were normal. Some days, Jim scavenged expired sandwiches from trash bins and reheated them on a tiny stove inside the van simply so his family would have something to eat. Everyone worked. During long overnight shifts, the entire family scrubbed factory floors and cleaned bathrooms for little more than $30 after 8 exhausting hours of labor. Despite barely sleeping, Jim still attended Aldershot High School each day, struggling to stay awake while wearing worn-out clothes that reflected the family's impossible situation. As his mother's health continued to decline, the pressure became unbearable. By 15, Jim was missing classes regularly to care for Kathleen, and at 16 he made the heartbreaking decision to leave school altogether. He joined his father as a full-time janitor, earning just enough to keep the family alive. Each night he cleaned buildings until sunrise. Every morning he returned home, helped his mother out of bed, bathed her, prepared meals, and sat beside her telling jokes in hopes of easing her pain. Those moments of laughter became the only light in an otherwise crushing reality. Kathleen lovingly called him her little sunshine, never realizing how much darkness he kept hidden inside himself. For 2 long years, Jim carried responsibilities no teenager should ever face, believing things could not possibly become any worse. Then came the morning that changed everything forever. In 1982, 20-year-old Jim walked into the bathroom and found his father lying unconscious on the floor after swallowing an entire bottle of pills. The man who had sacrificed every dream to protect his family had finally reached a breaking point. In a single horrifying moment, Jim realized that the strongest person he had ever known had been silently drowning in despair all along, and that terrifying discovery would haunt him for the rest of his life. Jim froze in panic before dialing emergency services, praying help would arrive before it was too late. Paramedics rushed Percy to Joseph Brant Hospital, where doctors managed to save his life. Only afterward did his father confess a heartbreaking truth: this had not been his first attempt. While the family had been struggling to survive inside that old Volkswagen van, Percy had tried to end his life twice before. That revelation never left Jim. From that day forward, he carried a silent fear that the same darkness might someday consume him. It became the reason he pushed himself beyond every limit, convinced that if he ever stopped moving, the pain waiting inside would finally catch him. Yet amid the fear, one person never stopped believing in him. When Jim was only 15, Percy drove him to Toronto's Yuck Yucks Comedy Club for his very first stand-up performance. Kathleen carefully chose a bright polyester tracksuit, convinced every television comedian dressed that way. Jim stepped on stage believing his dream was about to begin. Instead, he was met with silence. The audience barely reacted, and every second felt painfully longer than the last. On the drive home, disappointment filled the car, but Percy never criticized his son. Quietly, he remained proud. That humiliating night taught Jim something priceless. Failure could wound you, but it could never define you. Soon after turning 16, Jim left school behind. Survival had become more important than education. His entire family spent endless nights cleaning factories and scrubbing floors simply to pay for another day of living. Jim worked exhausting 12-hour shifts, often sleeping in the car for a few precious minutes before returning to work. But even during those exhausting breaks, his imagination refused to rest. He practiced impressions of Don Adams and W.C. Fields, rehearsing jokes to keep his dreams alive while the rest of his life seemed to be falling apart. The cheerful student everyone once knew slowly disappeared. Years of poverty transformed him into someone quieter, angrier, and emotionally drained. Still, comedy refused to let him surrender. It became the only place where hope still existed. Meanwhile, the family itself continued breaking apart. His brothers and sisters gradually moved away, his father's depression deepened, and Kathleen's dependence on prescription pain medications slowly turned into addiction. Years later, Jim reflected on those painful memories with heartbreaking honesty. He once said that the moment a person begins depending on painkillers just to face another day, something precious has already been lost. As a teenager, he often sat across the dinner table listening to his mother whisper terrifying words about her failing mind and her belief that death could come at any moment. Those conversations carved permanent scars into his memory. Instead of revealing his own fear, Jim built an invisible shield made of laughter. The louder people laughed, the easier it became to hide the pain no one was allowed to see. At 17, that shield finally earned him something tangible. A 20-minute comedy set at the Haft Comedy Club paid him $20. It was hardly enough to change his financial situation, but it proved something far more valuable. His talent could become his future. Determined to take the next step, he set his sights on Saturday Night Live. Certain that success was finally within reach, he auditioned in 1980 with enormous confidence. The opportunity ended before it even began. Producers dismissed him without allowing him to meet Lorne Michaels, believing he simply was not the right fit. The rejection hurt deeply, but it also forced Jim to abandon imitation and begin discovering the unique style that would eventually make him unforgettable. Behind every joke lived wounds that few people ever recognized. Because of his family's poverty, classmates mocked his clothes and humiliated him relentlessly. At his lowest point, emotional numbness became so overwhelming that he intentionally hurt himself just to feel something real. Decades later, he spoke openly about those experiences in a documentary containing footage so emotionally devastating that much of it remained unseen for nearly 20 years. Looking back, Jim realized that every exaggerated facial expression, every impossible body movement, and every explosive burst of energy came from a frightened little boy who had learned that making people laugh was sometimes the only way to survive. Even during those darkest years, hope occasionally found him in unexpected places. Some teachers at Aldershot High School recognized the extraordinary creativity hiding beneath his classroom disruptions. Instead of punishing him, they sometimes encouraged him to perform. One art teacher later recalled watching Jim sketch while simultaneously delivering a perfect John Wayne impression, amazed that one teenager could do both at once. In 1981, at just 19 years old, Jim landed his first television role in a small Canadian production later released as Rubberface. He portrayed Tony, an aspiring comedian desperately chasing success while struggling to survive financially, a role that reflected his own reality almost perfectly. Although the project brought little recognition, it marked the beginning of something far greater. That same year, carrying barely $200, Jim packed everything he owned and headed to Los Angeles, determined to bet his entire future on one impossible dream. Life in Hollywood was anything but glamorous. He slept on borrowed couches inside comedy clubs, survived on free food whenever anyone offered it, and attended every audition he could possibly reach. By 1982, he earned a place on the stage of the legendary Comedy Store, where countless comedy icons had launched their careers. One unforgettable night, Rodney Dangerfield watched Jim perform and immediately recognized extraordinary talent. He invited the young comedian to join his national tour, giving Jim the opportunity to perform before thousands between 1982 and 1983. Despite standing beneath bright stage lights each evening, he often finished shows wondering where his next meal would come from. Hunger never truly disappeared. It simply became another price he was willing to pay. Television roles slowly followed, though the pay barely covered rent. In 1983, Jim earned only $50 a week performing sketch comedy on the Sex and Violence Family Hour. He lived inside an almost empty apartment without furniture, surviving on little more than instant noodles while chasing auditions every single day. The struggle continued in 1984 when he starred in the sitcom The Duck Factory. After only 13 episodes, the series was cancelled, leaving him broke once again. Still, quitting never crossed his mind. A year later, fortune finally showed its first sign of changing. Once Bitten became his first commercial success, earning millions despite its tiny production budget. Critics dismissed the film, but audiences noticed something impossible to ignore: the incredibly expressive young actor from Ontario who seemed capable of turning every scene into controlled chaos. For the first time, Jim Carrey's name began spreading beyond comedy clubs. Success, however, arrived carrying new dangers. During those years, his personal life became increasingly unstable. He faced legal trouble involving marijuana, entered a brief romance with Mia Farrow, and slipped into cocaine use while trying to maintain impossible rehearsal schedules. Looking back, Jim later admitted this period represented one of the darkest chapters of his life. Even while everything around him threatened to collapse, he refused to stop chasing opportunity. Saturday Night Live rejected him again in 1983. Then it happened once more in 1986. His final attempt collapsed after an impression of Robin Williams failed to impress producers. 3 devastating failures might have ended another career. Instead, they transformed his. Jim abandoned traditional impressions and began inventing wildly exaggerated characters unlike anything television audiences had ever seen. Among those creations was Fire Marshal Bill, the bizarre firefighter whose twisted face, bulging eyes, and unforgettable catchphrase would eventually become his signature. Every disappointment had been preparing him for exactly this reinvention. Then came 1990. At 28 years old, Jim joined Fox's groundbreaking sketch series In Living Color. From his very first appearance, his unmatched physical comedy separated him from everyone else on screen. Across more than 120 sketches, he introduced viewers to outrageous personalities that constantly pushed comedy into unexpected territory. Yet none became more legendary than Fire Marshal Bill, whose terrifying grin somehow made audiences laugh harder with every appearance. Millions tuned in every week, and Jim's sketches quickly became the show's biggest attraction. His success carried even greater significance because he became the first white comedian to emerge as a breakout star on a program dominated by some of the era's greatest black comedy talent, including the Wayans family. He didn't merely belong, he became impossible to overlook. Behind the cameras, though, his relentless commitment came at a painful cost. Jim treated his own body like another comedy prop, transforming himself into bizarre characters such as Vera DeMilo while endlessly twisting, stretching, slamming into objects, and forcing impossible physical performances. He sometimes altered his weight dramatically within days simply to perfect a role. Critics praised his brilliance and even whispered about Emmy recognition, but few realized the punishment his body endured. During one demanding shoot in 1992, he severely sprained his ankle while filming a dance sequence. Rather than stop production, Jim masked the pain, finished every remaining scene, and kept making the world laugh, long after his body was begging him to quit. Jim Carrey's journey proves that the brightest smiles can sometimes hide the deepest pain. Behind the unforgettable characters, endless laughter, and worldwide fame was a man who spent decades fighting battles that almost no one knew existed. His story is not just about becoming a Hollywood legend, it's about surviving heartbreak, poverty, rejection, and emotional scars that could have broken anyone. If this incredible story changed the way you see Jim Carrey, make sure to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss our next powerful documentary. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know which moment shocked you the most. Do you think Jim's greatest achievement was becoming one of the world's biggest comedy stars, or simply finding the strength to keep moving forward despite everything he endured? Your opinion matters. Thank you for watching and spending your time with us. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll be back very soon with another unbelievable celebrity story that reveals the hidden truth behind the headlines.